Have you ever felt just completely drained by your job? Like you have nothing left in the tank? Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to talk about a silent epidemic that's sweeping through the modern workplace, and it's hitting younger generations especially hard. We're talking about burnout. So let's dive in and figure out what that really means.
Does that hit a little too close to home? That feeling of dread, the total loss of passion for things that used to get you excited? For so many people, that's exactly where burnout begins. It's that deep down gut feeling that something is just really, really wrong.
And look, this isn't just a feeling. It's a very real, recognized condition. The World Health Organization has a crystal clear definition for it. It's not just about being tired. It really boils down to three key things: feeling totally exhausted, feeling cynical or just mentally checked out from your job, and feeling like you're just not good at it anymore.
So how does this private, personal feeling of exhaustion blow up into a full-blown generational crisis? Well, the numbers? Wow. The numbers are staggering, and they paint a really clear picture of the challenge we're all facing right now.
Okay, let's start with the big picture. Projections show that by 2025, which is right around the corner, two-thirds of the entire workforce will be reporting symptoms of burnout. That's not a small group. That's the overwhelming majority. It shows this is a massive, systemic issue.
But here's where it gets even more alarming. When we zoom in on millennials, who are now the biggest chunk of the workforce, that number skyrockets to 77%. Think about that. More than 3 out of every 4 have felt burnt out just in their current job.
And for the youngest folks in the workforce, Gen Z, it's somehow even worse. An incredible 83% say they're dealing with burnout. They're the most impacted generation, and they're walking into a work culture that's already at a breaking point.
Seeing the numbers laid out like this, side by side, the trend is just undeniable, right? The burnout crisis gets worse with each new generation. This isn't just about a few people having a bad week. It's a systemic problem, and it's actually accelerating.
And let's just call it what it is. This is a mental health crisis. Burnout doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's directly tied to the fact that nearly half of Gen Z and over 40% of millennials feel stressed or anxious all the time. The two go hand in hand.
So, this leads to the most important question of all. Why? Why is this happening on such a massive scale? It turns out there are 5 key drivers that are really fueling this whole epidemic. Let's break them down.
It's really a perfect storm of pressure. First, you've got this crushing financial pressure. Student loans, insane rent, forcing people to work constantly just to keep their heads above water. Then you layer on this always-on digital culture, where work emails and Slacks just never stop, making it impossible to disconnect. On top of that, you have the unrealistic hustle culture that's glorified everywhere, tons of job insecurity, and this feeling that you have zero control over your own work. And yeah, that's a recipe for burnout.
Okay, so we know the causes, but how do you actually spot it before it's too late? Recognizing the warning signs is absolutely crucial, not just for you, but for the people you work with too. And burnout tends to show up in 3 main ways.
A lot of the time, the first signals actually come from your body. It might be that bone-deep fatigue that a good night's sleep just doesn't fix, or maybe you notice you're getting sick all the time. And those constant headaches or stomach issues, they might not be so random. It could literally be your body screaming at you to take a break. Then, of course, there are the emotional signs. You might feel totally numb, just apathetic about everything. Or maybe you find yourself snapping at people for no reason. That feeling of being trapped or losing all your motivation, or just feeling empty. That's the emotional core of what burnout feels like.
And finally, it starts to change how you act. Maybe your work performance takes a nosedive. You start pulling away from your coworkers, showing up late more often, or you just find it impossible to concentrate on anything. These are the external signs that your internal system is completely overloaded.
So I know this can all sound pretty bleak, but there is a path forward. The key, and this is so important, is to understand that fighting burnout requires a two-front approach. It's not all on you, but it's not all on your employer either.
This idea of shared responsibility is absolutely crucial. On one side, you've got the strategies we can use as individuals to build up our own resilience. But on the other side, and this is just as important, are the big solutions that organizations need to put in place to fix the broken systems that are causing burnout to begin with. So for us as individuals, it really starts with setting firm boundaries, like actually logging off at the end of the day to protect your time and energy.
It means making self-care, sleep, exercise, whatever recharges you, a non-negotiable part of your life. And it also means consciously rethinking what work means to you and learning skills to manage stress in the moment instead of just letting it pile up.
And here's a really simple but super powerful example of a coping skill, the Pomodoro technique. It's all about reclaiming control over your focus. You just work in short, intense 25-minute sprints, and then you have to take a 5-minute break. It forces you to stop, breaking that cycle of just endless, overwhelming work and giving your brain a chance to recover.
But again, little techniques aren't enough on their own. Companies have to step up, big time. They need to build a culture that actually respects boundaries, not one that rewards being always on. They have to redesign jobs so that workloads are actually manageable. They have to give people real autonomy to fight that feeling of helplessness. And they absolutely must provide real, accessible mental health support as a basic part of the job.
You know, when you pull back, fixing this whole epidemic requires a much bigger cultural shift. We have to move past this idea of just surviving our work weeks. We need to create a culture where people can actually thrive.
If you take only one thing away from all of this, please let it be this. Burnout is not your fault. It is not a personal failure. It's not a sign of weakness. It is a completely normal, natural human response to being put in an unhealthy and unsustainable environment, period.
So that leaves all of us with a really important question to think about. In this world that is just obsessed with the hustle, what does real, sustainable success actually look like to you? What does it feel like?
Let's end on this thought. Your job, your career, it's important for sure, but it's supposed to be a part of your life, not the whole thing. Protecting your energy, your health, and the things you're passionate about isn't selfish, it's essential. It's the foundation of a truly successful life. Thanks for joining me on this one.